Hey gang, so today we got a little bit of an info dump on the new Cargo Refactor, and I thought I would jump in and do a real quick shallow dive on one of the subjects on it. Maybe a shallow jive too. You might see me dance. You're not going to see me dance. Also, I wanted to do a little bit of housekeeping. I'll do that at the very end. This shouldn't take too long. I figure this will be a very shallow dive. So we got the AMA from the design features team on, or the lead designer, which is Gozerd CIG on the Cargo AMA. So let me go ahead and blow this up just a hair here so that we can read it. There we go. Okay, so the questions basically, if you haven't done an AMA on Spectrum, it's always kind of a shit show, just to be honest. So basically what happens is there's no downvote on Spectrum, and they did that to remove toxicity, but unfortunately what that does is it means that sometimes questions that have nothing to do with these posting guidelines here or clearly violate one of those posting guidelines get upvoted. Like somebody, this is all about the Cargo Refactor, and somebody will be like, what about the Carrick's elevator? And that one will get like the top votes because nobody is reading the posting guidelines. Or you can't downvote them, so people that have read those guidelines can't go through and downvote them. So CIG, downvote, even if you make it to so that the floor is 0, so nothing can get downvoted lower than 0 to prevent brigading, would be a marked improvement, because it would kind of separate the wheat from the chaff, like the things that are actually worthy of being upvoted. Just my 2 cents. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the questions here. So this one right here by Archangel was, are the external cargo pods of the Prospector, Mole, and Raft going to be detachable and replaceable? If not, what happens to the mined ore and cargo aboard these ships if they are destroyed? So this one is 50-50. So this is actually more of a vehicle feature team and vehicle content teams. Those kinds of guys are the guys that are working on like the pods on the whole series breaking off, and the Mole, the Raft, the little saddlebags for the Prospector and the Mole. That's all vehicle design and stuff. That's not really cargo. Now this right here, what happens to the ore and cargo aboard these ships if they're destroyed, that goes along with the cargo team and the Cargo Refactor. And so it's kind of a question of if the, like if you blow up a Prospector that's been mining Quantanium, do you get like a little 1 SCU cargo container of Quantanium? That's a good question. So let's see, resource pods such as, so I'm going to answer that one here. The other ones, they're kind of like, well, you're going to learn in a later ISC episode because they haven't completed that yet for like the whole pods, cargo pods getting blown off. But for these, resource pods such as saddlebags or fuel pods won't be detachable in this release, as further work on vehicle tractor beams is required. So the answer is no. You blow up a Prospector or a Mole in 318, they're not going to spawn boxes of Quantanium or whatever they were carrying, which, let's be honest, it's Quantanium these days. Nobody's really mining anything else. Regarding external cargo, such as the whole series and the Raft, these will detach upon vehicle destruction as outlined in the ISC episode. So basically what will happen is if you attack I think Hull A is the only one in the game right now, and the Raft, which has the giant containers on the back, which I think are 10 SCU. But if you blow those ships up, it'll just spawn the 1 SCU boxes. So good to know. So whole series and Raft, they'll spawn the little ones. The fact that they said whole series and not whole A is interesting, but they're not going to be putting the whole C in until they get this vehicle tractor beam done, would be my guess. So moving on, we go down here. Dobbs, this is interesting because he's part of the Mongol squad. A lot of questions from the pirates came in today for obvious reasons. I'll kind of get into that in a second here. So Dobbs asks, when it comes to Cargo Refactor and piracy, what have you thought to encourage player-to-player boarding actions with this feature? So the pirates are, this is kind of why they play. The cargo for a lot of these guys is kind of secondary, that you can't really do anything with the money, but engaging in that sort of cat and mouse, trying to get on board the ship, trying to set up the whole endeavor to actually trap a cargo hauler and then get aboard their ship, that's the gameplay. Like, your cargo is kind of secondary, which is typically why they'll ransom your ship back to you sometimes. Playing as a pirate has been definitely playing hard mode for the last few years. So don't be surprised if now that it's spawning boxes, you might just get torped this one, because they've had a really hard go the last few years with people combat logging and just self-destructing and all of this, that you put in like an hour or so of effort into your gameplay of trying to find this person and figure out what they're hauling, try to isolate them, get them in a place where you can set a trap, and then they just combat log and their ship goes poof, and you didn't get anything out of it. So they've changed that. So now, or you shoot their ship and their entire ship blows up, and if you're lucky, you get like the one SCU box with the gear that they were carrying. You don't necessarily get, or you get these little tiny boxes. But here, this is kind of reiterates what was said on the ISC last week. I think it was last week. Well, so we hinted about this on the ISC and it wasn't very clear. With 318, we are introducing the concept of soft death, and this is what I really wanted to talk about today. There's a 70% chance a vehicle will die with its interior and cargo intact from combat deaths. Explosive deaths, or deaths by game rules, near a barrier or touching water, for example, won't trigger a soft death. What this means, 75% of the time, you and your crew are still alive, and the cargo is still attached to the ship when combat death occurs. Ship reaches 0 health in combat. The 30% of the time that this doesn't happen, your ship explodes and cargo is pushed out. And then 0 to 90% of that cargo remains, the average being 45% of the cargo surviving, which is half of 90%. That makes sense. So what this is saying, what the soft death is, to this point in the game, if a ship reached 0 hit points, it exploded. And that was it. Now, I'm assuming as part of salvaging, that ship doesn't explode and become annihilated. It can enter a no longer operative state. And this is what CIG has been talking about for years. So essentially what happens is your ship becomes inoperative. It doesn't just explode. So the way you can think about this is shooting at a car until it stops. At a certain point, the car is going to stop, but unlike the movies, it's not just going to blow up every single time because you shoot a gun at it. And this is sort of operating on the same deal. And not only that, but it creates an asset for salvagers to go and recover, regardless of what attacked it or what destroyed it. Another thing it does is it gives that crew, once repair comes online, the opportunity to go and try to fix their ship and get it working again. So soft death is a huge, huge, huge concept, not only for piracy, but for the whole game. And so I can't express that enough. Obviously, Dobbs is extremely excited, as are many of the pirates, because what's going to happen is they'll shoot your ship until it stops moving, and they have a 70% chance that the vehicle will die. Or a 70% chance that there's a soft death. So the ship won't just explode, but the cargo and the crew will still be alive. The ship just won't be able to run anymore, which is ideal for pirates. A lot of them are very excited about that. That means they could potentially get 100% of your cargo rather than 0 to 90% with an average of 45%. Now, I was on the mongrel stream commenting on this, because as a hauler myself, I'm kind of on the other end. I'm the kind of person they'll be hunting, but I'll get into this. I want to do a show eventually on people I follow, and the mongrel squad is definitely one of them, because they regularly talk about how they hunt people down, and they will regularly say, these are the people we are looking for, this is how we do it. That is invaluable to follow that kind of thing and watch that kind of thing and be like, okay, I don't want to become a target. How do I avoid that? They're the experts, so follow them and listen to what they're saying, because they will tell you how to avoid being pirated. But anyway, they're very elated over this, but this is a good thing for the game as a total, even if you're a cargo hauler, because your ship is still alive, your crew is still alive. Now you've got to go into repelling borders mode, and you could call for help at this point if you don't want to hire an escort, because you don't want to pay someone to just sit by your ship and do nothing for hours and hours and hours as you just run Laranite back and forth to Lorville or whatever. Now you could send out a call to sort of be like, help, I'm under attack, and you might have a chance to actually survive it, and everybody gets what they want. Well, except for you that has your broken down ship, but repairs coming eventually. So now it's going to be traders waiting for gameplay to come in rather than pirates, and pirates have been waiting since 2015, so it's okay if they get a win here and there, right? So that said, that was the biggest of the answers right there, but there's other ones that I wanted to get to in a minute that were equally big. But I wanted to talk about that concept of soft death, because Spectrum's going to blow up with this, and people are going to be really upset, not understanding the full breadth of what that means for the game as a whole. And it is a big deal and is a good thing, and I just want to stress that. Moving on. Dobbs, again, mongrels. Do I need to neatly stack boxes all in square in order to get them to register correctly? And then Gozer says, containers are snapped to the grid when they are placed in the ship, which is cool. Anything in the ship or attached to the grid will be able to sell at the commodity kiosk, and they clarify this. That's not 100% correct. And then Agents, who's the leader of Mongrel Squad, says, does this also apply when the player places the box down a tractor beam tool? So this was, if you just grab a bunch of boxes, like right now I could probably fit 3 or 4 of the 1 SCU boxes, the bigger ones, in a Banu Defender, but it doesn't have a cargo grid. So really what they're asking here, I think what Dobbs is asking here is, can we use non-cargo ships and still get this stuff? And when it's in there, does it just snap to the grid, or can we just stuff a caterpillar full of all of this cargo we find, like even in the hallways and stuff like that, no count? And then he gets to it down here. Buying cargo, Daniel Danielson, who's an old, he's been with this thing since like 2013 or 14. I've been seeing his posts a lot. Buying cargo works, but he's actually not one of the gatekeepers. He's one of the good ones. Buying cargo works just like it does now. You purchase from a kiosk, cargo is, well, I guess I could read his. Containers are snapped to the grid when they're placed in the ship. Can be understood to mean placed in the ship by the cargo terminal, and as confirmation to the original question whether cargo stacked with the help of a tractor tool will snap to the grid. Clarification would be welcome. So in other words, if you go to the kiosk, it'll appear the way it does now. We're not at the point where they're manually loading cargo yet. That is coming. But what he's asking is, if I use a if I use a tractor beam and start moving a box in, when it gets over that cargo grid, will it just plop down and automatically lock into a set point? And so buying cargo works just like it does now. So there's your answer for the first part. You purchase from the kiosk, that cargo is loaded into the ship automatically and attached to the grid. So it's just exactly how it is now. Once outside of an armistice zone, you are free to move it around and snap it to the grid with a tractor beam however you want. So there you go. When you're moving cargo boxes and you're not in an armistice zone, like the tractor beam actually becomes available. It sounds like it'll snap to the cargo grid automatically. That's a little unclear, but they kind of get to it more here. So Dobbs asked a good question because it spawned a bunch of follow-up questions, which is always the kind of way that you want these AMAs to sort of evolve. Simperlex, example, a cutlass. I buy 46 SEU of goods, so it's full. So it only has a cargo bay that can fit 46 in theory on those on the cargo beds. On my way, I find a wreck and recover 10 boxes of 1 SEU, which I also deposit in my ship. On arrival at the TDD to sell, would I see 46 or 56 SEU? And so Gozer says, you would have a hard time making it fit, but sure, the cargo grid has a max capacity. Anything else is considered loose items, and if they are on the ship, you can sell them. That's interesting, and I want to see it working before I buy that, because I think Gozer isn't quite getting what Simper is saying. Like, Simper is saying, if I put a bunch of cargo containers, because the sort of living area on the Cutlass, you could probably easily fit like another couple SEU boxes in there. You probably couldn't fit them through the door, but if you had like the equivalent of the little micro SEU, which I think is like 10% of an SEU, if you were to put those in there, would it count? And it sounds like they're saying it would. Not to be confused with FPS items, though, such as guns, ammunition, stems. Okay, so those are technically a third-party inventory in your ship. Okay, so anything that you were to put in the inventory wouldn't count, but that wasn't really his question. So I think Gozer isn't quite understanding the question here. So the real question is, if I have items anywhere in my ship, even off that cargo grid, can I now sell them in the TDD? And Gozer is saying, well, yeah, if you could fit it in the cargo bay, you could sell it, sure, but I don't think you're going to be able to because of the volume of the space. But I think the actual question here is the whole ship a cargo space now, even outside of that cargo grid? And that's something we're going to have to test, because this didn't answer that. I think eventually you will, and the danger will be what the advantage of the cargo grid is that it locks things down. And anything that isn't on a cargo grid isn't going to be locked down, so it's going to slam around your ship when you're flying around eventually. That isn't in the game yet. So let's move on down. Are we getting any dynamic pricing changes? So again, this is one of those... So Jumpdown Jason is actually Salty Mike. He should know better than to ask this, because I don't know, Cargo Refactor, it's kind of half and half who that would belong to, but that's more of a Quanta thing. But Gozer goes ahead and answers it anyway. Commodity prices will not change for 318, mainly because we didn't want to have to do it all over again when manual loading and unloading is added into the loop. Loading and unloading will dramatically change the whole commodity trading loop. Yes, it will. And so will Quanta, and they're not going to do anything until those are in there. I wanted to say there's another couple ones in here. I would love to be able to buy 1 or 2 SEU boxes and put them wherever you want. Would make org events easier. Could buy all the armor and ground files, blah, 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 blah. I want you to be able to do that as well, rather than having to blow up your ship. Okay, so right now, if you take a backpack and put it into the ship inventory on your ship and blow that ship up, you can go out there and there will be an empty, or almost empty, you'll have the backpack in it, a 1 SCU box. And then you can use that 1 SCU box to carry it around to various bunkers and stuff like that. That's the only way you can get a 1 SCU box. So this is a good question. So, but that's what he's talking about right here. I want you to be able to do that as well, rather than having to blow up your ship and create them yourself. On top of that, I want you to be able to carry those around, loot bunkers, fill them up, and then snap them to the grid once you're back on your ship. He's saying want, he's not saying you can. I also want you to be able to do this and then go back to the station and go sell all of this without having to transfer it all the station's local inventory in order to do so. That said, it probably won't make it into 318. It won't make it into 318 unless 318 releases next year, which is looking solid. At some point, however, this will be a thing. This is where I use the dreaded soon. Yeah. So Cargo Refactor is going to be an ongoing thing because they, like I was saying for the last one, they still have to do the whole tractor beam and physicalized loading and unloading and quanta. So Cargo's got a little ways to go until it's like tier 2. I guess this would be tier 1. Because tier 0 is you hit the button and it appears in your ship. Now we can start manually moving things. Will cargo containers stolen by pirates be recognized by buyers as being stolen? There's another big one. This will probably be the last one I cover. So in other words, if a pirate grabs the cargo off their ship after they kill you or destroy you, where can they sell the cargo? Or can they even sell the cargo? Or will it register as stolen at all? Can they sell it anywhere? So Gozer says, when a player purchases commodities, those are owned by the player that purchases them. Anyone else trying to sell them will have to use the no questions asked terminal, and they will not receive full price for anything that they are trying to sell. That is interesting. Even if I give cargo container to a friend, they would have to sell it at a no questions asked terminal, and they would not get full price for the commodity. Grim Hex, for example, would be a location I could fence stolen goods. So Grim Hex, I think all of the terminals are no questions asked, but there are a few hidden on some of the stations, or at least there were. I haven't tried to sell anything illicit for a couple patches, so they might have pulled them. But Grim Hex is definitely a location you can do it. Let's go ahead and look down at these other questions. If I see another question that I think is really solid, I'll bring it back. Oh, actually, no, I'll bring her back right now. Blues Banks is asking, hi, will cargo boxes have any kind of signatures to be picked up by vehicles pangs? This is a big one too, because right now when you destroy a ship, and those little boxes are spread everywhere, you can't really see them, and they don't show up on radar. You can't ping them, so you're just kind of shooting in the dark, especially if you're in a dark area of space. So this is big. Cargo containers can be scanned. That is big, because now you're not just scooping up everything. You can be like, that's Quantanium, that's Bexolite, which is another big one, and that one over there is aluminum. We can leave that one alone. Scanning cargo containers is big, and AR markers will be present if they survive their explosion. We have also added color tints to the container so you can at least identify what category they belong to, such as metals or processed goods. That's big too. This would be big if you were flying back and your ship hit something and exploded, for example. Then you could go back and you could be like, well, I really only want the Quantanium that I spent the last 2 days refining. And then you could just grab that, and then you're not picking up all the little boxes of who knows what else you grabbed while you were out there, stems or boozahol or something, who knows. This one's Salty Mike, he had a few of these questions. He meant well. Are larger cargo containers still planned with the refactor like the ones on the raft? And I think those are like 10 SCU. Why just 1 SCU, and why not 10 SCU boxes for less entities? So this is a good question. Obviously the answer is they're not ready yet, and so I mean the answer is larger than 1 SCU containers are still planned, but at the moment everything is still bought and sold as 1 SCU container. So eventually you're going to be able to get the big like cargo shipping containers that you see on the raft. But it was pretty obvious during the ISC that if they could spawn the bigger boxes, they would, because that's fewer entities and a lower load on the server. So the fact that they were saying 1 SCU boxes kind of was the hint that they don't have it done yet, and they don't have it done yet. And I believe a new commodity is coming, just RMC, which is what you get from salvage. Will cargo loading timers be part of 318? And not yet. So that's another one. Once manual loading comes in, then they'll have, if you want to load it yourself, you can probably do it quicker and more efficiently than the system will. Otherwise, it puts your ship into sort of a, if you do it through the kiosk, you just say load it for me, then you're going to have a timer where it's basically saying your ship is being loaded, kind of like how you have a reclaimer time now, or reclaim time. Now you're going to have like a cargo load time. Like, you can't access the ship because we're loading cargo onto it. The simple answer is no, loading timers aren't in yet. They will be coming eventually. And I think that was the last one I wanted to talk about. ISC cargo missions were, okay, so yeah, I did want to talk about this one. Cargo missions were mentioned. Can you go into any detail on what these missions will be like and how they will work? In my mind and hopes, they will be something along the lines of this post, which we're not going to that post. After 318, we want separate commodity trading from cargo hauling. Commodity trading will be high risk, high reward. If you invest a large amount of money, you will also have to manage the cost of loading and unloading as well as protection. On the other hand, cargo hauling is just moving things for NPCs from point A to B. So that's basically Space Trucker. So basically, you're not tied to it financially, and it will be moving things the pirates don't care about. Debatable. But basically that is, that's kind of what truckers do nowadays. So cargo hauling is basically Space Trucker. Somebody says, hey, I need you to move this cargo container from Crusader to Hurston, or Port Olisar to Ruin Station over in Pyra. And so you load that box onto your ship. You don't care what it is, because you're not spending money to purchase the stuff in the box. You're being hired to move the box. So you're just a mover at that point. You're not putting your own money in. So they basically load a box onto your ship. They're renting space on your ship, and you carry it from A to B. So you're getting paid to move it from A to B. So the amount of money you're going to get for something like that is going to be low, but it should be predictable, and your reputation should ramp it up. Like, hey, this guy's good at moving this stuff. He doesn't get accosted by pirates. He doesn't take forever to do it. So he's got a better reputation. We'll give him more expensive stuff to move, and pirates will start caring what you're carrying. But the other one, so this right here, if you invest a large amount of money, you will have to manage it as well as protection. That's the way cargo works now. You buy a commodity, put it on your ship for what you hope is a low price, and then you go to another location and you sell it for a higher price. So all of the risk is on you, but all the reward is too if you make a profit. So you get all the profit. So you're the person making a purchase, you're the person moving it, you're the person selling it. With the second one, you're just moving someone else's stuff, so it doesn't matter. And I believe that was the last one that I want to talk about, and it was. So for real quick, the housekeeping that I wanted to do is tomorrow they're going to be doing their roadmap roundup, and I'll be doing my shallow dive into that. But that will be coming a little later than I normally drop them, because I have a work from office day, which I usually don't have on Wednesdays, which means I don't have to commute or anything. But tomorrow I got to go in on a Wednesday. So you'll be dealing with the commute. You might be getting that on Thursday, just as a heads up. So one last point that I wanted to make about all of this is that things are going to start shifting in the game starting 3.18, where destroying a ship suddenly becomes 0 to 90% as profitable as actually going and spending your own money and filling up a ship with goods. People are going to start looking at piracy as a way to kind of get free money. Because if you take out someone else, then yeah, you get a crime stat, but you can get the same goods, sell them for a little bit less without having to put anything in, except for the whole people at Mongrel would probably shoot me outright for that, but because you're still going to have to put in the effort of destroying them. Although I guess if you attack them with an Eclipse, Eclipse doesn't have a cargo bay, but you get the point. People are going to start attacking more. So the way you get around that is by convoying up, getting escorts, fully crewing your ship. So solo flying a C2 around, put a couple people in those turrets, or put one person in those turrets, or at least, or take an M2, which has 2 turrets on it. So you get the 2 in the back that are controlled by one person. You also got the chin turret that's controlled by someone else, and it's not a super hard hitter, but it'll still keep like basic attacks away. If you have an escort, that draws out the time a little bit more. Orcs, join an org, like my org. We're hiring. So the way my org works, I'm going to pimp this out now, so feel free to check out. But if you're in a small group of people or a solo player, especially if you're in a small group of people, like a org that's 3 to 5 people, we'll let you join up as a cell, and we might team you up with another cell that has similar interests or complementary interests. So team you up with a cell that's doing escorting missions that they just want to do PvP. We'll team you up with them, and then you're both doing the gameplay that you want to do. Just kind of the idea behind the carnival. Link in the description below. If you like what I'm doing, like and subscribe. If you don't, yell at me in the comments. I can take it. Love y'all. See me next time.